So Tyler is coming in now, and I know that this is a shock to you, but John's an idiot.
You're not an idiot.
No, I'm an idiot. Because it's like trying to figure out. So, I mean, you guys use the same thing, right? You guys use StreamYard too?
Yeah.
Okay. So the whole reusable studio thing
Okay.
was what I was trying to get into this morning. I was trying to get into the reusable studio space. And it was somehow John hitting the wrong buttons and only recording something. It was a live recording, mind you, but it was just a recording. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, where the hell is this going and why is it not showing up on the screen?
Did you dive into your whole intro and everything, or were you?
Oh, absolutely. I was gone, man. It's like I was off and running, and it's just like I see live and I'm like recording and I'm looking off because I have multiple monitors going on. And I look off to my left, and that's basically return. And I look and I just see the thing from yesterday, and I keep hitting refresh. It's just like refresh, and it's still yesterday's show. And I'm like, what the blank is going on here? So I cut my losses basically after 8 minutes of going through the intro and everything at 9:06. And it's like, yep, okay, I've got to figure the show out and all these other kinds of things. And it's just like, oh, screw it. And so that's why you ended up getting the secondary email that's like, don't go into that room, go into this room.
I figured there was something to that. It was a little suspicious.
No, it's a lot suspicious because John's a moron. And, God bless you, Alex. Alex is like, please do not talk about my friend John like that, John. It's like having separate conversations. John, you're an idiot. Why do you think so? Well, I'll tell you. We'll get into this conversation here as the show goes on. John's an idiot. Okay, I'll second that. Literally one of those kinds of things.
8 minutes.
8, yeah.
That's awesome.
Literally, I was gone, man. And I'm just like, well, screw it. I'm cutting my losses. And yeah. So, yeah, Brandon's like 8-12, dude. I'm like, yeah, I know. Sadly, I'm all too painfully aware that John's an idiot. What's the mug this morning, by the way?
It is the Mandalorian.
Okay.
Bringing him and Grogu / Baby Yoda back.
Baby Yoda.
Yeah. Breakfast blend coffee, which is very fresh and is nice.
Yes. See, you coffee folks, I just can't get into that. Now that you've had, yes. Now that you've had a couple days with your additional programming, now that you're going all 24/7, 365 with everything going on at Scarves and Spikes, what was the initial reaction after the win and the chaos that was attached to it for the penultimate match of the year? And so, of course, yeah, you're getting right to the last match of the year. So what happens? International window. That's great program.
That's how it always goes.
Yeah. So right up there to the edge of the cliff. And then, oh, by the way, it's like, Wile E. Coyote's chasing the Roadrunner. You get to the edge of the cliff, and it's that moment where he misses and Wile E. Coyote's just hanging out in midair. That's where we are right now with the MLS season. We are Wile E. Coyote missing the Roadrunner, and we're just kind of hanging that trying to.
Or where he paints the tunnel, and you're like, oh man, this is smooth sailing. I just got to go through this tunnel, and you run right into the mountain.
Yes,
that's what this international break feels like.
Yeah, so that's where we are. What was the initial feedback? I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit here on the network, but I wanted to get your perspective with what's been going on from the Scarves in. What's up?
Relief. I think this match, interestingly enough, kind of proves how, as fans, we all kind of have short-term memory, because
what? What?
Winning cures all, right? And it's not lost on anybody. Everybody knows, like, you put yourself in this position. It's tough now. You did the job, and you got to still go do the job in a couple of weeks, and things have to go your way. But there's a little bit of belief, a little bit of relief, a little bit of hope, and I think a lot of, well, I'm not convinced until it actually happens, and that's valid, right? Like, that's where you've put yourself as a team. You could have been into the playoffs by now, and you just couldn't win those games at home that you really needed over the past few weeks. And so I think everybody kind of went into this Red Bulls game almost looking at it as like a freebie in the sense that, like, if it goes good, yay. If it doesn't, well, then there's the season, and we'll see you next year, kind of thing. And they got at least another week. At least the game on decision day is a real decision day game. It's a game of consequence now, so that ups the stakes a little bit. And now it's going to be really curious to kind of see. They brought the fight to home. I mean, it wasn't pretty, but they did it. And then now you got to go see if they can do it on the road.
Well, and I mean, the way that if Red Bulls have it their way anyway, they're going to turn this into a mucker, a grinder, whatever. If you want to use the horse racing term, it's a mucker. If you want to use a college football term, it's a grinder. Yeah. They're gonna slow things down. They're gonna drive you crazy. They're gonna try to push and goad you. That's just like most of the teams in the northeastern United States. I'm having a revelation.
Right. It's crazy.
So I mean, it's they want to sit there and frustrate the ever loving ish out of you, force you into mistakes. They want to play like the ball has cooties. We don't want it. Y'all do all the work. And there were times, once again, where Atlanta United flipped the script like we've seen in years past. It's like, we're just going to bomb it long, and y'all got to do the heavy lifting for a change. And you could tell that Red Bulls were uncomfortable with it. Atlanta United saw some things down the attacking left-hand side where in the first 45 minutes, you had half of the attacks down the attacking left, trying to work that right-hand side with the absences that were there and the advantages you thought you could take. I mean, it was... Yeah, you got Edwin, and it's like, okay, bruh, go run. It's just go for it and grind them into the turf. And you got to see things from a couple of different dudes where they were given a chance to. All right, you got one last chance at home to show me what's going on. And with Edmund and Ronald and a couple of others, you got to see what they can bring to the table, at least in a short-term situation.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I kind of really, really talked about a lot in the pre-match show was tactically, like on here last week, we talked about how really the players just need to go and do the job. They just need to go and show some fight, show some passion, show whatever, show they want to be here. And I think they came out and did that. I think, they were effective. They had a simple game plan and they stuck to it. And that simple game plan was, don't allow the Red Bulls a moment to get comfortable, because if you do, all they're going to do is press you, and they're going to make it very difficult, and they're going to honestly just be a pain. That's what they do. And yeah, having Edwin and Saba, mostly Edwin, making those just obnoxious wind sprints down the left side, knowing good and well he might not get the ball. It was effective, right? It had the back line giving some second thoughts to, straying too far away. And when they did, Edwin was there, and to his credit, he did pretty well. I mean, he took a minute to settle into some of his crosses, right? Like those first few were a little overcooked, but overall, I mean, he put in a shift, and he made them very uncomfortable back there. So, I mean, you did what you had to do. You got lucky at the end, right? Like, you had some calls go your way, which we don't see happen with Atlanta very often.
Yeah,
but I'll take the luck.
Yeah. Take it and run, brother.
Yeah. And then move on the next week. Hope you get some more luck.
Mm-hmm. And look, I know that, and this is something that we've talked about this season as well, where you had and we had Bart on Monday to talk about the Isla PK opportunity where he's trying to hook the receiver as the defensive back. He's trying to hook the receiver going by, and it's just like a little hand fighting here, a little grab. Okay, yeah, 15. But then the incident outside the box that turns into this coffee clatch, and literally it's like this discussion with Ismir Pekmich, who, by the way, needs a better whistle. He needs to go to the whistle manufacturing companies and go, I need something that projects a little more. That's a separate thing we'll get to in a second. But the contact just outside the box that ends up in the set piece, and literally you had Emil Forsberg, you had whichever Nealis brother was out there. I think it was Dylan.
Yeah.
So you had Dylan Nealis and Emil Forsberg and Carlos Coronel kind of charging Izmir Pekmic outside the 18 and, wagging their fingers and woofing and getting in folks' faces. And then you end up with a push. How Dylan Nealis survived without getting a second yellow/red in the first place, I don't know. But the idea that Stian Gregerson, after getting knocked over, basically stood up and he's in Neelis's grill and he's just like, yeah, okay, is that all you got, Slick? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you wish you had seen a lot more and a lot earlier in the year, but you were glad that you got to see it in that situation. But there was a key moment if Atlanta United wanted to continue their season.
Yeah, I was up in the press box and I was like, let's go. Let's go. I've been waiting for this. Like, and parts of all, I see what you're saying. Like, passion, should they also show energy? I mean, yeah, show it all. Do whatever you got to bring.
Yeah.
Like, bring something to the table. And because you haven't seen it, right? I mean, even your head coach is saying, I don't really see it. And that should be embarrassing. And then you come out to this match against Red Bulls, and that moment for me showed a lot, because I mean, Stian might have been the one that went in and said, no, we're not going to be doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
But you got Slish involved, you got Marenchuk involved, you got Ronald Hernandez, we know is going to jump in there too. He just hasn't had much of a chance.
Yes.
But he jumps in. I mean, everybody, kind of was backing up their guy, and it felt like a true Atlanta Red Bulls match. It felt like a proper rivalry. We might not look at that, and a lot of people outside the Atlanta circles think, well, that's not really a rivalry. This is a rivalry. It has been since 2018. So I don't know. I liked what I saw. I loved Stian going in like that. I also loved his quote in the locker room at the end. That was hilarious.
But fat lady hadn't sung yet.
That was amazing. I was not expecting that to come out of him. But I like it. You showed some life, showed some passion, and just some pride in where you're playing at.
Well, and I mean, if there are those that might be new to this particular matchup that may not know that this is a rivalry, all I would do in this situation for those who are watching as opposed to listening is I would do this. This is all I would do. I would hold both of my hands up about the width of a trophy and just jam it in somebody's face.
Tito did it.
The Tito Kamar Lawrence back and forth. That to me was the first reason that this is a rivalry, even if you are as detached as you are. And then the playoff game up at Red Bulls, where you're treating the ball like it's got cooties and you're sending it long and having them do all the work. You're flipping your script on Red Bulls, as Tata did at the time. But no, this is a rivalry, fam, because that's all I'm doing. It's like I'm sticking my hands apart with the trophy, and then with Kamar Lawrence loses his damn mind and pushes Tito over, and you end up seeing everybody jumping in the pile. You saw that again in this current iteration. It just so happened it was not in a game that was in a playoff, but it was a game that could lean toward a playoff. And so, no, this is a rivalry. I think in all aspects, this is a rivalry. It's just that I think sometimes we need to be reminded about these kinds of things.
Yeah, and I'm sure Atlanta went into it basically looking at it as a playoff match, because it kind of was. I mean, right? Like, you had to win.
Mm-hmm.
The draw scenario was very mathematically improbable. That was going to be very tough. And so, you had to go into it with the mindset that this is just really the beginning of your playoffs. And I'm sure that was probably some of the message from Rob going into it. And so, I mean, who that rubbed off on? Well, clearly Stian, maybe Slitch and a few others.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, the team came together, and I like to see the heightened emotions at times. I mean, you can't be a team like that all the time, right? Like, you can't be a team that is just constantly living up here. That's unsustainable, and then people don't take you seriously. It's like a bit like Crying Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
But you were long overdue for some moments like that, and I'll take it all day.
Yeah, Wiley says, I don't know, man. Feels like it might be too little too late. If that's the case, then that's the case. But I would much rather see a club, and I don't care who it is. It could be your favorite college football team, could be your favorite baseball team, since we're in the postseason there now too. Could be, your favorite team in your favorite league outside of what we're discussing. But at the same time, I'd like to see that fight in a situation where it's required and not just requested. And there's a difference. It's like, yeah, I'd like for you guys to kind of engage. No, this is a situation where you need to engage. I want to see that because as we continue to mention, folks are playing for jobs, whether it's here, whether it's someplace else. You're fighting for a job, and folks are going to see your last actions out there on the pitch whenever that is. And so, literally, it's like huddle tape that's unedited. Huddle, traditionally, it's like, yeah, you got the greatest hits package, and here's what it is, and here I am in like 2.5 minutes. No, this is unedited huddle tape, and this stuff isn't going to lie. Where if you've got a teammate that gets pushed over, how do you respond?
Yep.
And everybody jumps into a pile and isn't going to take any ish from anybody. That's, I think, the kind of fight that you want to see. And like I said, yes, I know that you want to see that all season long, but with your back up against a wall, with it being a playoff play-in game, basically to keep your playoff hopes alive, however slim they may be, you're seeing that kind of jump in and that kind of engagement. And I know that a lot of folks are sitting there going, well, what took you so long? But you got to see it now, and you have that opportunity. I know it's slight, I know it's slim, and you're going up against the purple team and all these kinds of things. And Oscar Pareja, I'm sure, and everybody down there would love to sit there and bump Atlanta United out of the playoffs here in 2024. But at least you've given yourself that shot. And you've given yourself that shot with the fight that was there, basically, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and to Wiley's point, like, it might be too little too late.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that you go down to Orlando and win the game and still don't get into the playoffs. And I mean, that would still be better than getting knocked out by Orlando, but whatever, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
It might be too little too late, and it is what it is. But going back to what I said last week, and like Parzival said, the passion, more energy, more passion, like that. But that's the thing. Like at the end of the day, that's what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted out of these last two games. Show me who wants to really be here and stay for next year. Because had you kept coming out in these matches the same way you did, I'm not arguing anybody's talent. I'm not arguing anybody's like commitment to the game, but it does feel like there is a lack of, like, there's a disconnect somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't show that same thing on Saturday. They showed what they needed to show. And I think some of the players stood out as guys that, all right, you've got it in you. I wish you'd been showing it before this, but you got it in you. Now do what you got to do for the rest of the season, and then come back next season and let's see that all season long.
Yeah, it's like you plugged it into the wall, and it's like, oh, this works.
It does work. I just had to twist the cord a little bit.
It's like, wait a minute. Oh, so this is how. So, the batteries were dead. Wait a minute. So what happens if I plug it in the wall? Oh, okay. This is where we are right now, and the math that is associated. And yes, it's an ish load of math, and you know how we are with math here, but it's one of those where. Yes, you're in, and Mike had done all of the math, and literally the way things go, you could end up, if things fall your way a certain way, you literally could end up as the 8 with a win. And if you think about it, that's wild to consider that you could end up as the 8 if you win. And like I said, I know ifs and buts and candies and nuts and wait all Merry Christmas. I get that. But if you win and Philly doesn't win at Cincinnati, DC loses with Charlotte, Montreal loses with NYC, all somewhat plausible because folks are chasing after things. So Atlanta wins. Philly doesn't do anything against Cincinnati. And let me grab this. Let me just grab from a standings perspective, and we can kind of stare at things here. So Cincinnati, they're locked in place. They're the 3. So Could they be motivated to what? Who knows? Maybe they just want to sit there and, have a kickabout and get in and get out in 90 minutes. Who knows? But Cincinnati's locked into the 3. They can't touch nothing. So the matchup against Philly means a lot more to Philly because Philly's got a win that would get them to 10 wins. That would get them to tiebreakers and all that kind of yah. So Philly's at a +8. They would be part of the better goal difference group as things roll forward. DC losing against Charlotte. DC is in right now. Charlotte needs to play because Charlotte could be literally, they could be the 5, they could be the 6, they could be the 7. So Charlotte will be engaged. So DC could, sit there and they'd have to chase that one. Montreal and NYC. NYC, once again, they've got to chase because if they win, Orlando loses, they could be the 4. They could end up with home field in round number 1. They could be anywhere from, say, 7 if things fall, but they would have, win. They would have goal difference issues, and they would have more wins and all these tiebreakers and things. So NYC has to pay attention. Charlotte's got to pay attention. DC's got to pay attention. Philly's paying attention. Cincy does not. Atlanta and Orlando, and so I think at the very least you could have 7 of the 8 teams that are in Mike's number 8 scenario, the 8 scenario, having to actually physically do some heavy lifting on decision day. You get the 9, you're in. If you win, and 2 things follow. Philly doesn't win, and or a DC loss, and or a Montreal loss. So yes, there's math, and I know. But still, you're going to have teams that, short of Cincy, you're all going to have a decision day at 6 o'clock. Well, by the way, where are you going to be at 6 o'clock on decision day next week when we have you thought this far ahead yet? You guys going to be at the hotel? What are you doing?
I will actually be in the press box in Orlando.
Oh!
Yeah, I will be there.
Well.
Yeah, but barring anything weird with the hurricane, and prayers to everybody that's about to get hit by that thing. But
yes.
I'll be there. We actually, we have family in Orlando, so we go down there a handful of times a year, and kind of coincided this one with this game, and it'll actually be right when we show up. So I'm going to be getting out of the car, going to Inter & Co Stadium or whatever it's called now.
Yes, so. Inter & Co.
And our guys, they'll be doing a watch along over on the Patreon. So
okay. So so y'all's going to be all over the place for that.
Yeah.
One. So that's going to be solid. When it comes to anything else that happened with Atlanta and Red Bulls, I know that we see each other in the post match, and we come out with our own thoughts after you left the locker room and the discussion with Rob and all of those kinds of things. What else stuck in your brain going through the locker room after that match and seeing what else was going on mentally in that locker room after coming out the other side with a win that you needed to have?
I think everybody I talked to, they all kind of had the same mentality where it really hurt to give up those goals. We understand we got lucky with the 2 offside calls, but we're going to take the 3 points and run. Mm-hmm. We have to be happy about the 3 points. We have to let that, build some momentum. And then one of the questions I asked, anytime I asked a question, one was to Ronald Hernandez, but how do you keep this momentum, right? Because it does seem, I know we joke around about it, but it seems like Atlanta has this really unfortunate circumstance of always like getting a little bit of momentum right before an international break.
Yeah.
And Rob even brought it up in the press conference. Like, it happened with Charlotte. You played a good game against Charlotte, and then all of a sudden break, and you come back and you look like a team that's never played together before. So I asked, everybody, like, how do you keep this kind of rolling? And Ronald said, we have to keep kind of like the vibe that we have right now, and we're going to have rest days, but even on the rest days that we have between now and Orlando, we have to continue to train as if we're coming off of this game and keep this momentum high. And I don't know that there's a better answer, because I know nobody really has a true answer for that, but I think that's about the best you're going to get. They have to try to capture that feeling of winning in a bottle and go carry it through to the training ground and then carry it down to Orlando. And, I think that was kind of everybody's vibe. Like Stian Gregerson with his, it ain't over till the fat lady sings comment. He was happy, but he fully admitted that, like, we made mistakes and we were kind of lucky to come out with a win, but we won and it kept us alive. And now we have to go and do it all again. And so, I think if they can come out with kind of the same mindset that they did in this one and just tidy up some of the little mistakes, and they have a chance in Orlando. It's not going to be easy, but I think you're much better off coming out of this match than you have been in probably 2 months.
Yeah. And I mean, literally, all you want is a chance. So you're saying there's a chance.
Saying there's a chance.
So that's all you want. And I know that we'll have plenty of time to do other postmortems and things like that whenever the season ends as we go. When you look at the season in general, and I guess we can open up the Atlanta United yearbook if you want. The yearbook, you're passing you're getting signatures from everybody. Everybody's putting their messages down and these kinds of things. If we were to talk about senior superlatives, if we did those kinds of things in the Atlanta United yearbook here for 2024, who would be homecoming king? Who would be these kinds of things? Who would be biggest surprise for you when it comes to these kinds of awards as we pass the yearbook around here in 2024 with a match to go? Biggest surprise for you would be whom?
Biggest surprise, I think, would probably be.
I have a name, but I'll go ahead.
I have two.
Okay.
Because going back to the beginning of the season,
Yeah.
Derek Williams, I just wasn't sure how that battle was going to play out. Because talking with like some of our Galaxy fans and friends, and the time that he spent and just kind of around the league, and I just wasn't sure if Atlanta was getting another just okay, serviceable center back, and he locked himself in. I mean, of course he's had mistakes like clearing balls when you really needed to, not doing it. Like there's been some things, but he really impressed me with kind of the way he worked together with Stian Gregerson, the kind of partnership that they developed, his desire to just leave it all out on the field. That really impressed me. And then my other one, and it may be a byproduct of just where the team was at in the summer transfer window, but I love Pedro Amador. That dude is a freaking warrior, and I've loved what I've seen out of him every match. He's come out, he's laid his body on the line. He is really, really good at what he does. Like his 1v1 defending has been really, really awesome. And both of them have impressed me. Biggest surprises for me. And I'll throw in just as a, I don't want to say third place. That's not the right. What am I looking for here?
That's another individual.
Yeah, I'll just say Jay Fortune.
Okay.
And I only didn't say that as one of the original two because it's not that it's a surprise as much as it is him just consistently proving kind of what we already knew. And sometimes you get up to this level and you kind of have a drop off. And I think Jay has done really well for the positions that he's been put in.
I had Brad in my head.
That's a good shout too. That's a very good shout. Was not expecting him to come back and look like 30-year-old Brad as opposed to 40-year-old Brad. I totally agree. We've given him enough, plaudits and everything all season. The moment that goal went in that was offside, I was like, no, Brad, not like this, man. You've done so good this season. And then you got caught in like a weird position. You came out way too far. You got beat. It's a mental mistake. And then it gets called back offside. And I was like, oh, thank God for Brad. I'm so glad he didn't, end the season on such a crappy note because he's had such a good one. And a good one that he probably had no business having.
And I know that the way that I look at it is that you're there with someone who is another year past an injury. And I know that a lot of folks will sit there and go, Achilles injury, this, and this, and they'll talk about it. But I think that the further away you get from an injury, I think that the more confident you become, the more at ease you are with everything in your situation and where you are. And, we always mention how keepers age differently, where Brad is now a man. Brad is now 40. Just ask Mike Gundy about that. And so you have Brad a year further along. And there is, and our friends at Spot Track, where one of the sources that I use when it comes to salaries and contracts and things like that, there is a club option for next year. And it will be one of the intriguing decisions that the front office, in whatever form it is going to make when it comes to Brad Guzan. Is that last year in that contract that is the club option, considering what we've seen from Brad this year, coming off of last year, being that next year further on down the line, away from all the injuries, away from the knee injury, which still I'm waiting for a repercussion from the league from. I guess I'm glad that I didn't hold my breath on that one, and the Achilles injury as well. So you're further down the road from these things, and we've seen him come out the other side as someone who has really shown this year, shined and shown and shined.
We'll take it both.
Yeah, both.
Take it both.
Yeah, so Brad was the one that I had in mind in addition to the ones that you had on the table.
Yeah, and if it weren't for Brad, we wouldn't even be having a conversation about the playoffs at this point, because Brad has, in fact, single-handedly saved this team some points a handful of times this year. And so, it's amazing what was it, 2 months really of just not playing soccer allowed him to do. Like, he came back from the Achilles very quickly, and he's doing okay. But I think even in the beginning of the season last year, you could tell like he just had lost a little bit of a step. And then New York happens, and that was the most frustrating thing to watch. And the fact that he played on his knee after that for 45 minutes is just a testament to who Brad is. He's stubborn. He's going to keep playing. And then the fact that he came back like 8 weeks later after that, or was it even 8?
I don't think
another testament to how stubborn he is. But you could tell like he was slow. So you go through the whole season, and then you get to this past off season. He comes back, and he's been admittedly one of the best keepers in the league, and that's not being biased. That's just looking at numbers. And I mean, he's stopped you some penalties multiple times, right? He's made some absolute standout saves. Like he's been solid, and so yeah, it's going to be a really tough decision to just walk away from a guy that's given you as much as he has. Now, I mean, forget the rest of his time here.
Yeah.
Like, we all know what he's done, but you have to look at his most recent performances, and in 2024, he's been one of the best players on the team.
When I think about, and this is one of the things, and I don't know when keepers are comfortable discussing these kinds of things. When Nick Raimondo retired, he finally gave the interview as to how he addresses penalty kick situations. Nick Raimondo was is, and forever will be, I feel like, Bret Hart. He's the Bret Hart of penalty kick saves.
Yep.
When it comes to keepers. When he retired, he gave this big interview breaking down how he would go about penalty kick situations and save situations because of his save percentage. I would love this in a perfect world. Here's what I would love. If I could get Brad, Tim Melia, and Nick Raimondo to sit at a table, fly them all in, get them to a restaurant, maybe in Marietta or something, fly into Dobbins, get explicit permission to have Melia and Raimondo flying to Dobbins. They just get off at Dobbins, you get the motorcade. They go to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground, or they go to a restaurant there in Marietta, have them sit down, break bread, where we get to ask them about their approaches when it comes to penalty kick situations and how they analyze things and what do they see other than the water bottle and maybe what's on the glove that might be, might be a little sweaty and bleed through because you couldn't read it. But I'd love to know, and like I said, until Brad retires, we may not know these answers, but how you approach a penalty kick situation. Are you looking? I've always thought that if you were a keeper, you looked at the hips of the shooter. You're looking there. You're looking at placement of the plant foot, those kinds of things, and trying to process all that information. But I would love to have that kind of a sit down with Brad as to what he's looking at. Maybe go over video in a film room or something to see how he's processing this to have the success that he's having in these situations.
It's funny because I think when you really sit down and look at a keeper that is really good at saves, you have to attribute some of it and a significant sum to luck, because it really does come down to, first of all, you just got to pick the right direction. And,
Yes.
some are easier than others, right? Like when the penalty taker comes up and tries to, add a stutter step to it, and then you're patient enough to wait and you can kind of see which way they're going. That's different than a guy that runs up and, it's kind of harder to look at his hips, because you can open your hips up at the last second and send it the other way. But there's so many little bits of information you have to take in a split second, literally, and then hope you pick the right direction. But then it's about, stretching out. It's about, in a regular penalty situation, it's about the rebound. Like, there's so many little things that you have to worry about. And yeah, Brad's one of those people that he's I don't think he's ever, until the day absolutely that he is hanging up the gloves, he's ever going to sit and be like, well, this is what I did every time. And he might give the answer of, I just picked the side and I dove.
Yeah.
Got lucky, but it feels like he's, I don't want to say found the key and unlocked it, because he's missed. I mean, it happens, but he's been pretty good at what he's been doing with penalties over his career. And so it would be a very interesting question among many to ask
Yes.
when he does retire.
It's like the blackjack sequence in The Hangover, where you see Zach Galifianakis and you see all of the math problems going on in front of his face. You wonder if that's what goalkeepers are looking at, because I mean, Garth Lagerwey still holds the record, I think, for save percentage in the run-up PK in MLS history.
Yep.
And probably one of the best associated haircuts and hairstyles that goes with that particular save percentage. But you always want to ask a keeper what's going on. I mean, you always want to find out from Tony Gwynn, what's he looking at when it comes to hitting. You always want to find out about a home run hitter and what they're doing with their mechanics, with the perfect mechanics of a Nolan Ryan when he's throwing a fastball or something like that, instead of being Randy Johnson and being 8'2" tall and just whipping it at people, you know. And
hitting birds,
blowing up seagulls during spring training. I know. But yeah, I would love to have that kind of a conversation. So then along those lines, when someone else retires, what kind of a conversation? If you could have at Scarves and Spiked the same kind of a conversation, taking Brad out of the discussion, who else on Atlanta United would you like to have a sit down with in those kinds of situations to analyze situation X? Who else would you like to have in that kind of a situation?
By far, Dax McCarty.
Yeah.
And that's for a few reasons. Like, and I know it's an easy answer. He has obviously so much experience, but the midfield, being a soccer like tactics nerd, always intrigues me, because I think most people agree your midfield is going to dictate the entire game. And as a midfielder, you have to impose your will on the other midfield to win the battle, which allows the rest of your team to do what they want to do. And, being a guy like Dax, a number 6, that is my vote always as the position that should get the captain's armband. It's not always, probable or likely, because, I love Jay to death, but you're not going to go give Jay Fortune the captain's armband right now. He's too young. He hasn't had the experience. So you have to give it where it belongs, right? And, but being a captain in that position, as he has been before, you see the game in kind of a different way. And I would just like to ask him some things like, some of the best teams that you played on defensively and offensively, like what was it that made those teams work from your perspective? Like, what did you do and what did your fellow midfielders do that made the rest of your team so successful on both sides of the ball? What do you look for in other midfielders that you're paired with? Things like that. Because I would just be very curious to see, from a guy that has had both a lot of success and some really bad times in that position, like what worked and what absolutely didn't work. What should you stay away from? So he would definitely be probably my vote.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I am also intrigued as to how Dax will embrace the next stage of his career, because I certainly could see him in front of cameras with red lights starting next season immediately in some manner, way, shape, form, or analysis, where And since we have always known Dax to be a petit fleur, he is a wallflower. Never one to have to speak his piece on anything. Always holding back.
Yeah.
I want to see what the next stage is for him, and I'm glad that in as much as the season has not gone the way that he wanted it to, that he also got to have the moment for the final home match in Atlanta, and got the response that he got from the Atlanta United fans as he and his family were part of the lap that everybody got to take at the end of the match last time out.
Yeah, it was fun to see. I stayed up in the press box a little bit longer just to see it. They were grateful, and Dax and his family were grateful. And I think, the fans, they stayed around. They made some noise for him. It's not lost on everybody, like what he's contributed to the game and to this league in general. And so it was fun to see. And I'm glad he, in the places that the team has gone recently, that he's gone up there and he's gotten his just desserts and everything from them as well.
The man is rocking chair,
he's done it, he's lived it, he's seen it all. Now it's time to go ride off into the sunset, but he'll probably ride off into a press booth somewhere, I think.
As he should.
I mean, though, I would love to see him go the coaching route as well. I just don't know that that's where his passion's at.
Yeah, I know. Could you imagine Dax as a coach?
Yes, and it would be amazing. Just him like describing everything down to like the most minute detail would be really, really fun to listen to. But no, I think he ends up doing something where he's going to be able to speak to, a broader audience and analyze things and kind of give his opinion, and he'll do well.
No doubt. So what's going on with Scarves and Spikes this evening in the midweek version of SNS?
Yeah, we're going to be really just diving all into the Red Bulls match. These international breaks, man, they're weird on the schedule, but we'll be talking about Red Bulls. We'll touch on kind of like what we did here, the math, and kind of what needs to happen, and a little bit about Orlando, and just kind of get everybody all squared away and settled. And we'll talk about, the other sides of like now we're all going to be Cincinnati fans, right? We're all going to be, fans of the teams playing against these other teams that we need to lose. So maybe looking in a little bit to what those teams can bring to the table to help out Atlanta on decision day.
Just do your damn job, right? Just do
please.
Just do your job.
Please.
Yes. Please, baby, please, baby, please. So Tyler got his full segment because I cut bait and made sure that links could just be active and everything. So as always, my friend, great to see you. Have a hell of a show tonight. And obviously, that whenever you want to crash, you can crash. It's not just for Wednesdays anymore. So
yeah, I'm becoming a Friday guy now. Maybe I'll just start hopping on randomly on Friday. We'll see.
Fine with me. That's what Friday free-for-alls are all about, especially when you get to hear the 5 o'clock whistle. All right, Save your voice, enjoy your coffee, and we'll catch up with you soon. Enjoy the show tonight.
Appreciate it. See you.